Action RPG roguelikes are a dime a dozen, but Heart and Slash has something special, a spark, both narratively and mechanically. It takes place in a world where humans are aloof, distant, callous, don't know what they're creating, to what end, or what to do with it, just imbuing sapient sentience and emotions into whatever for seemingly no particular reason. And, well, eventually the machines rebel, and you're the final robot striving for individuality to fight for humanity. Eventually, you unfortunately learn that that very fight for individuality is what makes you part of the homogenized collective. There is truly no escape. And in spite of that dark premise, there's a lot of humor to it, and I wouldn't say there's subtlety, but the game is content to let the world building speak for itself as you fight the remnants of humanity's past mistakes. Aside from the narrative themes and wit, there is a game here, and there's a lot of game. There are simplistic mechanics, sure, with your light and heavy attacks, but skill matters in a big way, and depth unfolds as you experiment with the options available, and there are so many options. There are countless weapons, and each weapon and weapon type have their own mechanics. You can hold 3 at a time and switch between them all instantly, allowing you to switch between effectively 3 completely different playstyles on the fly. Resource management is also a huge factor. You can scrap parts you've gained, like weapons and armor, to gain health, but then you're effectively gimping yourself. You have to choose which buffs are superior, which ones to leave behind, and which powers you want to sacrifice to survive. It's as much an RPG as it is an action game, and it leans heavily toward action and execution, but the RPG elements cannot be ignored by any means. The game strives for that perfect balance between skill-based action and RPG, and for a while it tricked me into thinking it worked. This is a very thoughtful game where you have to carefully maneuver yourself around your enemies, be perfectly aware of their spacing, not waste any of your attacks, be intimately familiar with your range, all that good stuff from the beat-em-ups I love most. But it is all too easy to abuse the RPG mechanics in your favor. Pick a weapon that works best for you, and then smash enemies into the ground with it after you figure out it stuns them. It doesn't help that the AI varies greatly in quality. In the late game in particular, there are these mini-bosses that will just straight up stand around and let you wail on them with impunity. They don't try to move, they don't fight back. They're supposed to have the same moveset as one of the earlier bosses, but it clearly didn't map properly. Add to that the fact that when I did get to the final boss on only my second run, I couldn't really tell what was going on. I seemed to be hurting it sure wasn't hurting me, it was kinda hard to tell, and then the fight was over. And yeah, sure, the visual style and music accompanying the boss battle was spectacular, but I would have liked it to feel as good as it looked and sounded. This really is a lovely game with a lot to appreciate, from the deep, forceful storytelling to the mirthful music to the environmental variety to the poetic heart, but it's not particularly well designed. And if that's enough for you, well, that's enough for you. And that's normally where I'd end the review, but that just feels entirely inadequate in this case. Like, yeah, the game's design is broken by my standards, but to begin with, it's a game where you're meant to be allowed to run away from enemies, and there are so many options that of course some of them are going to cheese combat encounters. And to top that, there's a secondary ending you can get through means I won't spoil, which is about the power of mercy and love in an otherwise violent world. If I stapled on another addendum every time I second-guessed myself, we'd be here forever. The bottom line is, the game is janky, and there are a ton of things I didn't even mention which can be considered bugs by many people, but it does have heart, and I'm not sure what more I could ask from the game than that.